Welcome to the Zweigletter Podcast, putting architectural, engineering, planning, and environmental consulting advice and guidance in your ear. Zweig Group's team of experts have spent more than 3 decades elevating the industry by helping AEP and environmental consulting firms thrive. And these podcasts deliver invaluable management, industry, client, marketing, and HR advice directly to you, free of charge. The Zweigletter Podcasts, elevating the design industry one episode at a time.
Hey folks, and welcome to another episode of the Zweigletter Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Wilburn, and I'm excited to be with you today. Listen, I've got a guest that I've been waiting to have on this podcast, and she actually fell into my lap, not physically, but she fell into my lap because we connected and on a number of levels, and the least of which is the fact that she is an alumni of Howard University, where I am an alumni.
Right,
so,
you?
Yes, kindred spirits, you know. So, but Julia Sujak is an architect. She is a podcaster. She is the primary architect for the city of Hartford. I believe that's her. Well, that's the title we're going to give her for this episode. And also, which is really exciting for our Zweigletter audience, is that she is part of the 2021 Elevate Her Cohort for Zweig Group. And so without further ado, I'd like to welcome Julia Sujak to the Zweigletter Podcast. How are you doing?
I am doing amazing. Thank you so much for having me. This is exciting. I'm excited.
It is exciting. So, normally, but, just so folks know that we're not crazy, but typically my greeting to Julia would be, "What's up, family?" Because we went with the Howard. That's just how we roll, and that's how we get down. Once a Howardite, always a Howardite.
Always.
So, but and it's funny because Howard's been getting a lot of publicity lately, and as have been a lot of historically Black colleges and universities. And it's so funny because I've been telling people for as long as they would listen, especially in the design industry space, that I'm like, there's a lot of good engineers and architects coming out of historically Black colleges. But we're going to make that case today. And I would love for you to share with our audience who Julia Sujak is. Give us your superhero origin story.
Okay. Well, I am a very proud daughter of 2 amazing West Indian immigrants. They worked hard, and when they were growing up, education was sort of the way to get off the island.
And which island was this?
Barbados.
Okay, Barbados. All right.
Yeah. Cool. So my dad, he's no longer with us, but he was the smartest human being on the planet. And he made his way up to Canada, and he had me. My brother was born in Barbados, and then they immigrated to Canada. They had me. I was born there. We stayed there for maybe 4 or 5 years, and then we moved down into the northeast portion of the United States. So I find that is the beginning of what I call myself born for diversity. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is my parents were West Indian immigrants. I was born in Canada. We came to the United States. The music my parents listened to was different. The stuff we ate was different. The way we worked and the way my parents parented was different. What we found was most important was different than the community I grew up in. And so having to go through that, I had to learn how to speak a different language, not necessarily a different language, but in terms of cultural language, understand other people's music while still appreciating mine, different colors of people. And then, as I went through school and went through architecture and my career, which maybe we'll get into, maybe not, but I went through a diversity of different parts of the industry. And just to sum it all up, from all of that, I really feel like I've found an appreciation for the differences of people, the differences of within our industry. And diversity to me is not a complicated thing. I don't struggle with it. People who are with completely different views, I'm not mad at you. I may absolutely not agree, but I know that you are a human like I'm a human, and it's all right. So I really feel like that journey as a young person and being born of people of different culture helped me, and then growing up in an area where people were completely different made it just part of who I am. It's not, some people who grow up with one type of culture or one type of color, you tend to only feel comfortable there. I think I like to think I feel comfortable anywhere. I can go to India and I know I'll be different and odd, but I won't have a problem with you. It might not be the same the other way around, but
right.
I will feel comfortable because I know you might speak a different language, have a different accent. It doesn't bother me that you don't speak English the way I do. When people are learning English, it's, some people are irritated by it. I love it. I absolutely love it. I love languages. I love cultures. I love different dress. I love different behaviors. So I see that as part of my superhero story, because just that journey helped me to understand something that I think a lot of people are just trying to learn from books and lectures right now. So,
yeah, I love that. That's great. That's exactly a great place to start. I would ask, I'm curious to know, since your dad was the smartest guy in the world, was he
on the
planet? Was he the one that kind of directed your path towards architecture? Did you come to home one day after school and say, Daddy, I want to do architecture? Or what was it that kind of aligned you on that path?
Yeah, absolutely not. I wanted to be a ballerina. Now, I know a lot of you can't see me, or none of you could see me because this will be a podcast, but
you appear to be pretty tall.
I'm 5'11". Okay. And, I'm over 50 now, so I'm a little rounder than I was back then, but I wasn't, the typical really lean, skinny, petite girl, but I wanted to be a ballerina so bad. There's nothing else I wanted to do in life. So, around junior year, they start asking you, what do you want to do with your life? And I was fighting to be a ballerina, but my teacher kept telling me it wasn't going to happen. So, so you try to put the things together that you like. And I was really good at math. I love it. And I loved art, but I wasn't a natural artist. I wasn't a visual artist by nature. It wasn't one of those things that came easy. So, yeah, my dad said, why don't you put those two together and try architecture? And senior year, I took a CAD class in high school and said, why not? Let's just do it. So it wasn't one of those, I want to be an architect from the minute I was born. I just formulated it.
That's funny. Now, did you know going into it that architecture was like a 5-year commitment? Because,
yes.
That's how Howard's program was, 5 years.
It's 5 years, and that did not scare me at all.
Okay.
I think one thing that scared me is when we got into class, and one of the first classes we took, we had to do a floor plan. And who knows what a floor plan, what is that? And you don't have the capability in your brain to visualize what the floor plan looks in 3D and how big things should be. So I wish I kept it because it was probably a hot mess. So it was just really getting your brain into it. But, I love school, so 5 years didn't scare me.
Wow.
If you would pay me to go to school, I would go to school for the rest of my life.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And we were there pretty much at Howard the same time. You came in a year before I did, but there were people there we can all attest to that were there on the long-term plan,
yes.
People that had started in 82 and were still trying to wind things up in 88, 89. So
right,
I think, Howard had such a reputation. There were some people that came and stayed.
Yeah.
And then stayed some more. So,
Yeah.
And then there were people that came and left. I always tell folks all the time, I'm like, listen, I was in school. I was in class with Sean Puffy Combs. We called him P. Diddy at the time. And
we weren't we?
The Puff and D thing, those parties they used to throw all the time. And he'd come into my history class and he was just, he basically did not want to be there. And I got it. And later on in life, I've run into him a few times and dapped him up and said hello, talked to him and all that. But he was just on a different trajectory. But, it's Howard actually was that fertile ground that kind of showed you. And I actually think Howard contributed actually to his success because he was able to, kind of wet his teeth and throw events and do all kinds of cool things. And I know he brought the Notorious B.I.G. for those that are rap fans. He was the first person to bring the Notorious B.I.G. to Howard University, Crampton Auditorium, and a lot of good stuff happened. But I think it was a real entrepreneurial mindset on our campus, and people were given wide latitude to express themselves and try different things.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with that. Yeah.
So it worked out. And you expressed yourself through architecture. And
yes, I did.
You've pretty much never looked back. I mean, if you look at your history and where you've been, you've done so much. What has architecture meant to you over the years? Because you've clearly have expanded and gone beyond just coming out and becoming a designer. You saw something more out of the career of an architect.
Right. Yes. And I wish I could tell you that was all on purpose. But a lot of it was circumstance. I got laid off a couple of times. I started straight in architecture. I'm going to be just honest with you. So I told you when I was young, I didn't dream of being an architect. That wasn't a dream of mine. So after I got out of architecture school, you go through the 5 years and you're designing things. You're in charge. You are presenting. It's all your ideas. And, you're learning about other designers and what they're doing and how they're building the shapes. And then you get out of school and you sit at a desk and you're told to draw site plans and floor plans and go get this approved at the building department. And so the first few years, I was like, oh my gosh, pull out my fingernails and feel better than this. Because the whole creative part that's not what you were there to do. You were there just to work. I know some get out and they have the blessing of being able to be designers right away, but that wasn't me. So I journeyed through architecture. I worked for an interior design firm for a short time. Then I was able to get into construction workforce development, helped young people get into the construction trades, which was good because that's another side where you get to understand what unions are about and what labor is about and how that's all developed from that side. Then did some project management for a construction company, pre-construction management. So it was just thankfully a wide range of things that I have been able to understand the industry full circle. So it wasn't on purpose, but a few layoffs. You had to take some turns. After you got sick of being laid off from architecture, I said, let me get a construction management master's. Let me see what I can do with that, and that got me into that pre-construction management. And I really fell in love with management, I think, when I worked with WSP in project controls. And I realized, this is for me because it's budget tracking. Like I told you before, I love math. So I love tracking budgets. I love making spreadsheets. I love having meetings. That's another thing I learned at Howard University. We would do our presentations. And I love that part because being with the people, talking to people, coming up with ideas, figuring out the problems. I love tracking. So it sort of came full circle, but I couldn't have gotten here if I didn't understand how all the other stuff works. If I don't understand how the building is put together and how the people put the building together and what goes on in the inside and the interior and how the money is tracked. So all those different avenues, it really makes up a good project manager because you can manage all the parts and understand where things might drop off and sort of foresee what might happen. So it's been an amazing career. I will tell you, confession, I have looked to the left and I have looked to the right. There are times when I was like, I am absolutely done with this stupid architecture. This is stupid. And for a few reasons. One big reason was I was really honestly sick and tired of being the only black woman who walked in every darn room that I went into. I was tired of being the zebra. I was tired of, sometimes coming in rooms where people are looking at you like, what are you doing here? And I was just tired of it. I said, I want to go into something where my people are. I don't really know what that was, but you just get tired of trying to always validate yourself. But then it came to a point around my 50th. That's where this Facing 50 came from. Around my 50th birthday, my father had passed away just before my 50th birthday. All at that time, again, I was thinking, what am I doing in this career? I'm stuck. And then I looked at myself in the mirror, after some serious soul searching, and I said to myself, well, how can I be telling young people to get into this amazing profession? How can I help them if I leave the room, then nobody else will come in and the next lady will be in the room by herself? So I said, listen, I'm not going to do this for myself. I'm going to do it for the others, for other young people. And so at that moment, I said, listen, I didn't have my architecture license at that point. And I said, I'm going to go back. I'm going to study for this license. I'm going to take all these exams and I'm going to finish them in the next 7 months. And that's what I did. So the motivation was completely different. It was less selfish, but more purposeful. So, I think that's when I stopped looking to the left and the right and decided this is what I'm going to do. This is who I am. Well, maybe not who I am. That might be going too far, but this is what I do for a living. I've spent so many years doing it. I have so much information. I have so much to share. So maybe that's the point of it all.
And it's so funny that you mentioned that, because I do know a bunch of architects that have never gone to get their license, right? It's a common thing. It's not like, and there's some amazing architects that don't have their license. You're like, oh my God, you're not licensed. And, in my former days when I was a recruiter at Zwei Group and we did executive search work, I mean, obviously you were always looking for an architect that had a license. In CARB, you were looking for somebody that had the ability to be licensed, that could sign documents, the whole 9 yards.
Yes.
And that was a big deal. But I have noticed lately, it's not as pronounced as it used to be. And I don't know, do you feel that way? Do you feel that that maybe the acknowledgement that everybody doesn't have to go that path, it's maybe more acceptable than it was previously?
Yes, I do think so. I think people are accepting it for others and for themselves, that I don't really have to get a license. I like what I'm doing. I would advise young Black women, however, to get it. I was advised years and years ago that, you really should get it. Because again, just to be honest with you, it's a credential that you can't get overlooked when you have it.
Wait, before you go any further, okay. I think we should set the table, because I think one of the things that I was sharing with you off air before we started this was just the simple fact that I don't think people realize how few Black women have their architectural license.
Yeah.
And I was in a group, I participate in a lot of groups with a lot of young design professionals. I'm always encouraging them, telling them that they can do amazing things. And, but one of the conversations going back and forth were a couple of young ladies that were studying for their license. And, the one was like, if I get it, I'm going to be number 491 or something like that. But at the time, and this was like last year at the height of the pandemic, there weren't even 500 women, Black women, that had an architectural license.
Right.
And I don't think people realize how few there are. I don't know how many Black men there are that have architectural license. That would be a good number to find out. But there's like about 500 of you guys in the whole, that have a license, have an architectural license.
Yeah.
So I think just perspective alone is important.
Exactly. And unfortunately, like everything else, the more tools you have in the toolbox, the less excuses people have to excuse you from the room. So I encourage, it's an expensive thing. It's expensive to take the license exams. It's like the books are expensive. It's hours and hours and hours of studying. But when you're done, no one can say, well, I would have, but, if you just had the license, there's just no, it just wipes that right off the table.
Yeah. I mean, it totally,
but because I say to myself too, did I really need it? I didn't really need it, but it helps. It's helped me, I think.
Yeah. And it seems like it has informed how you are interacting with the next generation and some of the things that you're doing. I noticed that you did something with the Young Architect Summer Series workshop. You did your superhero story, and I'm just going to read this little blurb here. But as architects and architects in process, we spend a lot of time looking around, emulating, and trying to be something. But the more time we spend looking around, searching and trying to make, the less time we have to spend becoming the professional that we are meant to become. How do we turn this tide We need to know our story, understand where we came from, and connect with who we are naturally when we are at our best. When we understand that, that's our story, and we can be who we're meant to be. So, and I don't know, did you write that, or was that?
That is not. Nope, that wasn't me. That was the
you.
Young
Okay.
Architects.
Okay.
Yes,
All right.
And that hasn't happened yet. That's going to happen in July.
Oh, we're
that
teasing
workshop.
It. Well,
Yep.
yeah, I spoke at that summer series workshop last year. I think that's
Did you really?
Michael
Okay.
Rusika,
Yes.
Yeah. So Michael's a great
Yes.
guy. I love Michael. He is this, and that's funny. I guess we can talk about that. He is this new generation of architects that's not stuck in this old way or old wineskin thinking, if you will, as a designer. And so he's a kind of a breath of fresh air when I come across him and what he's doing and the way he's interacting. But what was the impetus behind this particular topic that really resonated with you?
The story, my story, the thing that I'm going to talk about.
Yes.
We're always looking for our purpose and our reason and our meaning. And from my point of view, your story is your power. Like I explained earlier, being an immigrant, growing up in an area where everybody was different than me, the journey through the profession, that's my story. And when I look back at it, that is the thing that has created my superpower, which is, my F-50 woman, my management. And the thing about it is, it's not it's not an accident, and it's not premeditated. I can't think of a better word, but it's not something that you say, I'm going to formulate this now. Okay, so I want to be great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work at this company. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to try to speak this language, and then I'm going to be great. It's something that you have to look back on, see where you've been, really analyze who you are, understand what you like and what you don't like. And when you put all of that together, you understand where your power lies.
Yeah.
So that's sort of synopsis. Hopefully,
I love that. That's great.
Yeah.
I can't wait. Now, will that be virtual or in person?
That's virtual.
Okay, it is going to be virtual. Yeah, the one that we did was virtual too, and I think I brought Gregory Minot from Dream Collaborative up in Boston, as well as James Garrett Jr., an outstanding architect out of Formula Architects in St. Paul, Minnesota. So. They participated last summer in a panel that we did for the Young Architects Summer Series. So I would encourage anybody listening to this to definitely check out Michael Rusika, the Young Architects podcast and the Young Architects Summer Series. You could do a lot worse than spending a couple of days with those guys. And I think Michael is just on the cutting edge of where design leaders are going in the future. And he is that next generation. He's younger than both of us. So,
yes.
And he definitely has a good head on his shoulders. So would encourage anybody listening to this White Glitter podcast to check out the Young Architects Summer Series. So it is Randy approved and Julia approved for sure.
Absolutely.
So.
It's an animal that you probably won't recognize when you see it.
Right.
Because it's something that helps everybody in the cycle.
Yeah.
The company owners will benefit. Those people who are interested in architect will benefit. Those who are taking the exams benefit. Everybody benefits. Mm-hmm. And I say nothing is free by saying that everybody has to put in some work, but everybody gets something out of it. I think it's amazing.
No, you're absolutely right. And as I'm listening to you say that, I think more design firm owners, design firm leaders, the folks in the C-suite need to spend more time hearing from this next generation and what they're going through. And I was blown away by the stuff that I was hearing from a lot of really bright young design professionals. And some of it was disheartening and some of it was encouraging, right? At the same time, right. It's like disheartening because I'm still hearing the same old crap being fed to young people that are coming out of school into the design profession, that I was hearing back in the 90s, and it's still being shared today. And I'm just like, man, come on, we got to do better than that. And I think it's important for us to do that. And so programs like this other program that you're a part of, the Elevate Her cohort, is helping to bring some understanding to that, right? And to create language around what is and what isn't acceptable for young design professionals and just design professionals in general, and also giving voice to those that have not traditionally had a voice in this space. And so I think it's really important. I would love for you to talk about your experience with the Elevate Her cohort, since it is something that Zwei Group does and puts on. And I think this is the second go round of this cohort. We've actually had a couple of people from the first cohort on. Marcia Alvarez was on, and we've had some really. I was blown away by the quality of people that were part of this. But I would love for you just to kind of share your experience and what your takeaways have been thus far, because it's not over. But
no, we're maybe a quarter of the way through.
Yeah.
So when I first got involved, the ideas that come out of a group of people getting together with a common purpose and a common understanding is amazing. Things that the first cohort came up with were like, wow, that is such a good idea. And I always love being in a room where you don't have to convince everybody that this is a problem that needs to be solved or something that needs to be addressed. I think my overall challenge is really for everybody, for all of us, and it's not just necessarily the cohort, but all of us to really get comfortable with talking about diversity. It's not a secret word that we say. Sometimes it feels like you say diversity, everybody's like, oh, what do you mean? What did I do?
Yeah.
What? So, just say diversity means everybody. It doesn't mean just some people. So I'm excited to take part in it. And what I also really love about it is you can share your experience and share your opinions and share your ideas and really come out with a great product that is balanced and effective. So I'm really excited to be part of it. And it's a lot of work, but it's so worth it.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to, the next 5 years or so when some of this stuff can come out.
Exactly.
And be full blown.
That's awesome. And how many people are part of this particular cohort? Do you know?
Goodness, I want to say maybe 30.
Okay. That's what I thought. Yeah. It's a great
Our
program.
group has about 5. Yeah.
Okay. It's a great program. I want to encourage everybody to check it out. And we'll put a link in the show notes to the Elevate Her cohort, and so that people can get involved with that, and folks like Jamie Claire Kaiser, as well as Christy Zweig Niehaus, and so many others are doing some great things there with you guys, and I can't wait to see what comes out of that. So that should be good. So you've worked on the private side of things, and you recently took a position with the city of Hartford, Connecticut. And Hartford is a town that I spent quite a bit of time in, because I had some very close friends of mine that were from Howard. We have mutual friends that they were my best friends from college, and so I spent a lot of time up in Hartford. I always liked Hartford. I thought it was a cool city. But what's that been like for you, moving over from the private sector into the public sector, and working for a city like Hartford? That's had its challenges, mind you. And what has that experience been like as an architect?
So far, it has been amazing, and I'll tell you why. Everybody in the city, in our department, the Department of Public Works, everybody is dedicated to doing their part. And the purpose of it is different because we're not for profit. It's a little bit more relaxed in the sense that, okay, we're trying to get this done. We're trying to get this done right because either the children, we're building this for the children, or we're building this for the community. We want this park to look great, so they would feel like they're valued. So the reasons why we're doing everything is different. So, if you know me, I'm a let's serve kind of person. I'm not money motivated. So, I don't want to count myself out of a for-profit organization, maybe sometime in the future, but I want to get the job done. I want to get it done right because the people who are going to be using the facility are the whole reason we're doing it. And it's very much that feeling about everything we do. When I first got there, I was, when you hit the ground running and you're like, okay, we got to get this done. And you're really, hurry up. Let's get it done. What's happening? Why aren't things done? Here it's sort of like, okay, it's all right. It takes a little bit of time. It's slowed down a little bit. And then don't forget why we're doing this. It always comes back to, well, we want the community to feel welcomed. We want them to feel valued. We want this to look good so they know we care, so they'll take care of it. And so the purpose of it all is great. And, things take a little longer just because it's not our money. It's the people's money that we're spending. Right. So I can't, as the architect, just say, hey, we're going to build this my way. We have to really get agreement with everybody who's speaking for the people who live there. So it takes a little longer, but it's not because we don't care. So I think that's a perspective I have different than, government takes so long and, oh my gosh, what's taking so long? And they just don't care about us. But it's because you can't let one individual make a decision for a whole group of people. So, there's checks and balances in there. So I really love it. I think it's a place where we're all working together. And like I said, everybody has a job to do. So I'm the architect. We have civil engineers. So if there's something that crosses over the boundaries that I need them to help with, they're just right there.
Right.
Everybody's right on. So I think it's a well-oiled machine at this point. I don't know what was happening before I got there, but
clearly they needed you to show up and help out.
I fixed everything.
So, it's all good. Well, I mean, and I think it makes sense what you're saying, because I think a lot of times people need to understand the public side of things, right? I'm always telling design firms, make sure that you're building relationships with those in leadership in the communities that you serve. Make sure you know all your stakeholders, because unfortunately they are not unfortunately, but they hold a lot of the keys to a lot of the things that you want to get done, both on the private and the public side. And so those relationships are invaluable. And I'm assuming that you've had a chance to kind of build some of those relationships, or at least it has been impressed upon you how important they are.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So, so what's next for Julia? I mean, you got, like I said, you're doing a lot of things. You're doing events in the summer with the young architects. You've got a podcast. You're there with the city of Hartford, really making a difference. What do you think is the next season for you? And I know that's a tough question because we never really know what our next seasons are going to be, but I think we have an idea of what we would like them to be. So if I pressed you hard, what would you say the next season would be, and what role would architecture play in that? Yeah,
that's a great question because I have dreams. For the next season for me, my motto right now is I really, and it's a big one, so I'm not sure how it's going to happen, but I want to change the world one woman at a time. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that, but I view my Facebook page and my LinkedIn page and my podcast and my daily work in architecture, meetings. I view all of that as the story that I'm going to leave behind that either pulls the world down or picks it up. So in the future, I look forward to maybe talking to groups of women, young women. I'd love to mentor if there's young women out there who are interested in architecture. And again, it doesn't have to be black women. It could be any women. It could be men too. I'm not excluding the women. It's just because I understand that experience that I lean that way. But I love to help people be their best self, to achieve their goals, and just do great things. So I haven't formulated exactly how that works, but I'm always looking to figure out, how can I help you? How can I push you? How can I take the information that I have gained and just fill you with it? And so you can run with it when I'm done filling you. So that's my dream. I don't know how that's going to happen, but I'm looking forward to the possibility.
Yeah.
But I'm desperate to leave this world better than I left it.
Better than you came in, huh?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's about right. I mean, that definitely sums it up nicely. So I love how you shared that. And I think it's important that, you have kind of allowed yourself to become completely well-rounded. And I think a lot of times with some design professionals, they become so, myopic with their focus that they stop looking around to see what else is going on, and they don't take care of the complete self. They may be outstanding architects, but they may be bad in other areas, right? And we all struggle with that. We all struggle with that, but it's we have to take that Kaizen approach to consistently getting better. And when I do the leadership trainings, especially for the ones that I do with Zwei Group, we're always talking about that everybody's a leader and everybody has to take it upon themselves, to self-care and take care of yourself. And then, if you want to be the best version of yourself, it starts with you. And then it emanates from there. And so I think it's really important for people listening to this to definitely check in and see, are you taking care of yourself first? Because you can't take care of anybody else. You can't design the next greatest building if you're not taking care of yourself first. So, it's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that's also goes to your story. The idea is that we're always trying to, and I know in architecture school, we oftentimes look at great architects and then we try to emulate their design style and we try to dress like them. And, you try to take that on. But really being great means being you. And like you said, that's going to take some time for you to take a time out, take care of yourself a little bit and figure out who you are.
Yeah.
I know for me, I was always trying to be great, and I think I was trying to be like my dad because he's so darn smart. It just wasn't me. Yeah. I didn't soak up information like he did. He was a bulldog. You couldn't go in a room and talk any nonsense to him because he'll make sure that you stop doing that. And next meeting, let's go. This meeting's over. So he would give me advice to do that. It's just not my personality. It wouldn't come out right, and I'd probably just end up mad and fired. So really figuring out who you are and what makes you, your greatness in the world is not going to look like anybody else's greatness. So it's really important for you to recognize that. I think we spend a lot of time looking at other people and thinking to be great, we have to be like them. But to be great, maybe, we learn how to speak like Randy. We learn how to, dance like Julia.
Right.
Well, when I was younger. But you do it your way. You learn some of the skills, but then you do it your way.
Right. And
so that might mean you're not on a podcast, or that might mean you're designing large buildings in Dubai. It might not. And so that's all in figuring out your story and who you are. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Because who's happy trying to be, if I'm sitting up here trying to be Oprah,
I know.
The worst Oprah ever.
Trust me. And
I'm going to
And I think the world is waiting in eager expectation for everybody to be the best version of themselves. And sadly, some people never hit that mark. And that's unfortunate. But I think that's one of the things I'm always telling design professionals, because I always see it's I get it that, this industry, the people that work within it really work hard. They put their nose to the grindstone, but sometimes you got to look up and smell the roses. Sometimes you have to appreciate the accomplishments. And I'm always reminding design professionals that you guys are some of the most important people in the world. You are responsible for the built environment, and everything that we see, everything that we take in on a daily basis is because of the work that you do. And that's how important it is. And I think a lot of times design professionals forget that.
Yeah. The small parts and the big parts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So,
yeah. I'll tell you one thing that my husband told me years ago. We have 5 kids, so we were dancing between, and 4 of them are boys. So it was football games, baseball games. It was just constant going. And I wanted to be an architect. I wanted to be a great architect. I wanted to focus on my work. I don't want to run these kids around. I don't have time.
Yeah.
And so I got to a point where after the children got a little bit older, I felt bad, because look at this person over here, they're leading an architecture company, and this person over here is designing all these things. This person's CEO, the other person has a company of their own. And he just looked at me and said, you know what? You're missing your accomplishments. Because when you look at those other ladies, they're doing great and amazing things that they should get credit for. But look at the 5 children you have walking around the world. That is your accomplishment. And oftentimes we're doing it and we can't even see that what we're doing is so much different than others. But boy, you know what? Your purpose. Don't miss it. Don't miss it looking around. Don't miss what you're doing, looking at everybody else's sandcastle.
Yeah, man.
So that was hard. That was a hard one because I was always trying to keep up with the Joneses and be the great lady, great architect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You said a mouthful with that. That's for sure. And I think somebody listening to this podcast needs to hear that. So I appreciate your transparency and willingness to kind of share a little bit about your journey. So listen, if anybody listening to this podcast wants to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
I would say probably LinkedIn Messenger. So I'm on LinkedIn, Julia Sue Jack. If you're on Facebook, I'm on Messenger and I'm on Facebook there too. You can find me, and that's Julia Sue Jack as well. Please check out my website, which is F as in Fred, 50woman, F50woman.com. And you can catch the podcast there, and you can see blogs there, and you can just keep in touch with what's going on. And especially for those ladies who are 50 and above, let's get together and let's listen. You're not done yet. We're not done yet.
Yeah, no.
We're 50, but we're getting started.
And if you're a woman over 50 and you're an engineer or an architect, or you know a woman over 50 that's an engineer and architect, you need to introduce them to Julia Sue Jack, and her podcast is great. I've listened to it. I'm, as you guys all know, I'm a huge podcast fan, so it is what it is. But she does an amazing job, and it's very, very encouraging. And I was so glad that she shared that with me in the first place. But I would encourage you guys to check it out. And we'll put all of that in the show notes so that you have all the ways to get connected with Julia. And we really appreciate you coming on the podcast. So
thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
This was great.
This was a pleasure on many levels, the least of which is the fact that you're my fellow alum. So,
that's right.
So that's exciting. But thank you so much, Julia Sue Jack, for coming on the podcast. And we really appreciate you. And we look forward to hearing from you in the future and hearing about all your exploits, both as an architect as well as a member of the Elevate Her cohort at Zweig Group.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
that's exciting.
Stay tuned for the cohort number 2.
Absolutely.
And become cohort number 3.
That's right.
There'll be
and we'll put
one.
information out there so people can consider joining. But I would encourage anybody listening to this that once you've heard this, you're like, man, I want to find out more about this Elevate Her. I'll make sure all that information is available for you. And you can always get that information at zweiggroup.com, as well as at the zweigletter.com website. So Julia,
And there are also a couple of men involved in that.
Oh, right. Yeah. It's not.
I just want to put that out there.
Yeah. It's not just women, but guys that are secure in themselves have joined this group. So, yes. So, but that's awesome. I love that. So, well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
I look forward to hearing more from you in the future, and bless you.
Appreciate you. Well, folks, that's another episode of the Zweig Letter Podcast. Please, to learn more about one of the oldest newsletters in the design industry by visiting thezweigletter.com. You can read articles online, listen to this podcast, and sign up for a free subscription to the newsletter and have it delivered right into your email inbox every Monday morning. Sign up today. For more info about Zweig Group's advisory service or any of Zweig Group's publications, visit zweiggroup.com. You can subscribe to the Zweig Letter Podcast wherever you listen to it, and please consider rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. I'm your host, Randy Wilburn, and we will see you soon. Peace.
Thanks for tuning in to the Zweig Letter Podcast. We hope that you can be part of elevating the industry and that you can apply our advice and information to your daily professional life. For a free digital subscription to the Zweig Letter, please visit thezweigletter.com/subscribe to gain more wisdom and inspiration, in addition to information about leadership, finance, HR, and marketing your firm. Subscribe today.